guys, Work here. We are back at Applied Ballistics once again, and Aaron here has decided to help us out with our next set of matchups, basically. So what we're doing tonight, we are going to be testing out a wide variety of firearms that you would find in the Carry Optics class in USPSA. We've got everything from CZ, we've got Glock, Walther, and Sig. We'll go over those a little bit more here in just a couple of minutes, but for now, I'm going to let these guys kind of introduce themselves. You guys know me, Work. I shoot like half of the USPSAs that are available, and I shoot about like a high C class level. Builder?
Builder shooter. I am a USPSA member, but I am currently unranked. I'm similar in scoring to Work, but pretty much I'll be loading mags for these two guys.
Go right ahead, Aaron.
All right. I'm Aaron. I'm the owner here at Applied Ballistics. I also shoot for our shooting team. I'm a master level pistol shooter in single stack. Haven't quite got there with open. I'm as yet still in classified and carry optics because I haven't shot it much, but I plan to this year. So we'll see how that goes.
I'm Drew, and I've got about 6 years in USPSA, and I'm a grandmaster in limited and limited 10, and just kind of starting into carry optics this year.
Okay, so the guns that we're going to be using are, the first gun that we've got is the CZ P10F Optics Ready model. These things come in at about $513. On top of it, we're running a Holosun 507C. Now, those kind of vary in price. Normally, you're going to see, the cheapest you're going to see them sold for is $300. But if you know the right people or do the grab a quote on Grab a Gun, you can get these for about $250. Now, the thing with the CZ here is that in the stock package, in the stock form, it does not come with mounting plates. It only comes with a cover plate. So you will have to buy a mounting plate. Now, those will vary anywhere from about $30 all the way up to $80. So taking into account all of the most expensive options, so the $300 for the optic and the $80 for the plate here, we got a grand total in the CZ of about $894, so just under that $900 mark. Now, some of the specs on the CZ, the weight is 1 pound, 12.2 ounces. It's running about a 5.3 pound trigger pull, and it's got a 4.5-inch barrel. The CZ package also only comes with two 19-round magazines. All right, next up we've got the Glock 34. This particular model is a Gen 5 MOS. The Gen 5 MOSs come in right at about $700 for just the gun. Now, the gun does come with 4 plates. It does not, however, come with a plate for the particular optic that's on here. The one that's on here is the Shield RMS. Now, these things go for about $400. It's a little bit smaller than our other optics that we've got here, but it does the job just fine. The mounting plate for the Shield RMS comes in at around $90. So that brings our total package price of the Glock here up to about $1,190. The overall weight for the Glock is about 1 pound, 10 ounces. It's rocking about a 6-pound trigger pull. It's got a 5.3-inch barrel. Now, the Glock does come with 3 17-round magazines. All right, next up we've got the Sig P320 X5 Legion. Now, the X5 Legion is kind of a weirder gun. The past two guns were just polymer guns. The X5 Legion actually has a tungsten-infused polymer, which is going to modify some of the things about it. The X5 comes in at about $915 in its stock form. On top, we're rocking a Leupold Delta Point Pro, and that comes in right at about $400. Now, the Delta Point Pro does not need a plate on the X5, and when available, the Sig Pro won't either. So our total package price for the X5 Legion comes in right at about $1,315. Some specs on the X5. We've got an overall weight of 2 pounds, 12 ounces. Now, if you remember the weights on the other ones, that's about a full pound more than our Glock and our CZ. We've got a 5-inch barrel, and this also comes with 3 17-round magazines. It does have about a 4.5 pound trigger pull, and in the case of this one and our next one, these do come stock with magwells on them, which unfortunately does take them out of the Carry Optics classification. However, both magwells can be removed if you want to run these in the Carry Optics class. All right, next up we've got the Walther Q5 SF Pro. Whew. That's a long name. Now, this gun comes in at the most at $1,550. On top, we're rocking a Trijicon SRO, which is about a $570 optic. This one does come with 3 optics plates, which includes the optics plate for the SRO, which also covers the RMR and the Holosun 507. So the overall weight on our Walther here is about 2 pounds, 12 ounces. Right about the same as that X5 that we were dealing with, which, if you remember, is actually a polymer frame gun. The trigger pull on this guy is right about 5¼ pounds. We're rocking a 5-inch barrel, and this also comes with 3 17-round magazines. This one also, like the X5, has that mag weld that's going to pull it out of the Carry Optics classification, but it is also removable. So the idea, what we're going to do is we're going to head out to the range and we're going to run 2 different classifiers. We're going to run TikTok and we're going to run El Presidente. Both of those are relatively standard classifiers that you're going to see pretty much anywhere you end up going there's a classifier, and they're going to be quick and they're going to give us a lot of info because both of them require magazine changes. So we are modifying El Presidente a little bit. We are doing a table start on El Presidente because we don't have the holsters to be able to swap back and forth easily, and we got a southpaw with us, so that kind of puts a wrench in everything. So that's what we're doing. We're going to head out to the range now, and we're going to shoot some rounds downrange. So we just finished up. I'm here with Drew, and so his results were, and this is just overall combined between both El Presidente and our bastardized form of TikTok. So, well, bastardized form of El Presidente too. So first was the Sig, then the CZ, then the Glock, then the Walther. So you want to give us just a quick 3-minute rundown?
Yeah, if I had to guess ahead of time, I would assume that's about how it would have come out. I have more time with the Sig than I do with any of the other guns, and if I were just going to pick how they feel in the hand, the Walther to me feels the most unnatural. It isn't a bad feeling gun, but when I get it into my hand, it's just different than all the other guns I've got experience with. I thought the CZ actually felt great in the hand if I were to pick a gun that I, out of all these, if I had not shot any of them, just picking them up, I think the CZ probably feels potentially the best. I do really like the Sig. I've got more time with the Sig. I own one, and it's not surprising I shoot it better. With the Glock, I own and carry Glocks, and I like them for sport shooting when you're trying to get that extra tenth of a second here and there. I just have never been able to perform with the Glock like I can with some of the other guns. There's a lot of things that add to that, and it isn't surprising, but it kind of showed itself in the results. As far as overall finish, with the Sig, I have more time with it. It's a great gun. They sit in the hand well. They've got a lot of heft, which is good for this type of shooting. The trigger leaves something to be desired stock, but it can be finessed and made into a much better trigger, which is a good thing. But overall, it's a great gun. The Walther is a bit of a brick, and it's got a very unique grip shape and contour. And for me, it isn't easy to just pick it up and go with it as it is some of the other guns that are a little bit more natural and more common. Another thing I noticed is CZ, the grip texture. I love it.
It's nice and rough.
Yeah, absolutely. It sticks in the hand really well.
If you had to start as a new shooter, which one do you think you would go with?
As a new shooter with budget in mind, I would go with the CZ. The CZ itself is not an expensive gun. It's got a good trigger. I felt them out of the box. They're pretty good. It's got fantastic ergonomics. It sits in the hand really well. I don't think it would take very long, and it would be very difficult to get really comfortable with it.
What would be your order in progression on, as a shooter got better, best bang for the buck, kind of taking all that into account?
Sure. If I was a brand new shooter and I was just getting into the game, the CZ is considerably cheaper than every gun up here, probably pretty close to the Glock. It offers a lot with the grip texture. I think that is really important in a sport gun. It's also got great ergonomics, feels good in the hand, the trigger's pretty good. If I had no experience otherwise, that would be it. As an experienced shooter and knowing what I want out of a gun in the sport, I like the Sig. I bought it myself, although, truth be told, at the time I didn't have enough time with it to really know that it checked all the boxes that I wanted, but it really does, and with a couple extra parts here and there to kind of fine tune it, I personally think this is the best gun at the table, the Sig. It runs great, it's very soft shooting. For a polymer gun, it is heavy, it sits in the hand really well, and it's got everything I would want out of a 9mm gun with a dot on it for this purpose.
All right, guys. Next up, we've got Aaron. So his order of best to worst was Glock, Walther, CZ, and Sig. What are your takeaways from that?
Well, interestingly enough, the Glock is the one I would have thought that I'd have shot the worst with. I did get that one reshoot when it was malfunctioning on me. Yes, the Glock was malfunctioning, but to be fair, it's our rental gun. It's the one that we've had in the rental case the longest, so it's had a lot of rounds through it, and all it took was a little bit of oil and it ran fine. So, but the Walther, I had one bad shot on El Prez that drug the score down considerably. That was my fault. I pulled a shot. It is what it is, but I still think over a longer period of time, the Walther would have shot better for me. The surprise standout for me was the CZ and the Sig. I figured I would have shot the Sig better than the CZ. Just having handled and shot both before, I prefer the Sig to the CZ, but not by a huge margin. But we have a rental CZ here. We just don't have one of the optics ready ones like we were running today. And I've shot it before, and I actually like it quite a bit, especially for the price point the gun comes in at.
So if you were a new shooter, which one did you kind of head to?
New shooter with budget in mind, it would have to be the CZ. It was the least expensive and very comfortable to shoot, very easy to get accustomed to. New shooter that has a little bit more budget, it would probably be the Sig. I like the Sig pistol quite a bit. The extra weight is important. The interesting thing about the Sig is, as a factory gun, I'm not a big fan of the trigger on the Sig. The CZ, I think, has a better factory trigger than the Sig does, even though we were using a cheater trigger today. But it is.
We were.
But I think the CZ actually has a better trigger than the Sig.
and I'm a big trigger guy. One of the things that led me to purchase the Walther actually is the trigger. I think it's got the best factory trigger out of the group here.
Yeah.
But the Sig, I like the extra weight for recoil management and that sort of thing, particularly if you get into a competitive shooting and your goal is speed shooting. I think that is a pretty significant factor. My favorite's still the Walther, though I want to mention that I don't like the factory grip on the Walther. I know Drew talked about that a little bit. It doesn't feel as comfortable in my hand. Yeah. I put an LOK slimline grip on it for mine, and it makes a world of difference. But I hate that you spend that much on a gun and then have to spend $100 on a grip.
Yep.
So it is
you
definitely
could buy the
not
Sig and spend $100 on a trigger.
True, but you start at $915 with the Sig,
true.
so you're still $500 shorter. Well, $600 shorter actually if you get the Pro. I would never buy the Walther Pro for a competition gun. The only difference between the Pro and the regular model is the magwell and like $120.
Oh, jeez.
And so the magwell, since you can't use it in carry optics in production, I would save that $100 and get it without it. But never. That's what I did. This is our rental. It has a magwell, but for a competition gun, I wouldn't, because you have to shoot open to use the magwell on an optic.
And that is not a viable open gun.
No, I have an open gun, and I shoot the open gun a lot faster and more accurately than I can in the Walther. But to be fair, but yeah, I think the CZ is a great budget offering. The Glock performed fine, just like we would all expect. I mean, it's a Glock pistol. We all know they make good guns. It's not my preference. I'm not a big fan of the glare angle. And I ran into the same thing with
Apparently you are.
I ran into the same issue with it as I do with it all the time, is that I'd come up and then I'd have to adjust down for that first set of shots. And once you get on target, you're fine. It's a little slower out of the gate for me because I'm used to the other grip angles. Nothing against it. If I shot a Glock, the others I would have to adjust up.
I will say you can feel a difference in the recoil because of that grip angle, though.
Yeah,
it does change that up. All right. Thanks, Aaron.
All right.
Okay, guys. So now we've got builder shooter here. So builder's order is Walther, Glock, CZ, Sig. What's your takeaway?
Honestly, I shot them all just absolutely terribly. So Aaron's laughing because it's true. It was really just a crapshoot as to which one I would shoot better. The Glock kind of doesn't surprise me that it was the second one, because on TikTok I ended up running iron sights because it was running the RMS. You're able to run factory iron sights, and honestly, I am just not good with a dot. I have not put the time in to get to where I need to be with that.
So if you were starting off as a new shooter, where do you think you'd go?
I know the others said CZ, but honestly, as a guy who's looking at getting into carry optics, I would have to go Sig, just because if you're going to work your way to that anyway, and it's not that much more, it's not the difference between the CZ and the Glock and the Sig, or the CZ and the Walther, that's a huge difference. I would probably go with the Sig and either run the Delta Point Pro, the Romeo Pro, or the SRO on a Springer Precision mount, or honestly a Holosun on a Springer Precision mount. You'd be about the same price as the Delta Point Pro. I just think that it's the best option to get into. You're going to run that thing. You're going to run the same gun from when you start shooting to when you are actually good at shooting, and I just think it's the best bang for your buck. You're only going to buy one gun and run with it.
Yep, I don't disagree. I think it depends a lot on how serious you're willing to take it. If you're actually willing to take it seriously and you want to be competitive in it, if you're just going out to have fun and to mess around every once in a while, or to learn, and you plan to just kind of stick with that mentality, maybe the CZ. But if you're planning on really being competitive, it's probably worth the extra money for the Sig.
To me, it almost seems like the CZ and the Glock are more of a, if you can put them in this category, a duty weapon, designed more towards military and law enforcement to run carry optics, whereas the X5 Legion and the ABCDEFG are both more competition-driven guns. So,
thanks, Builder. Okay, guys, and so my order is CZ, Sig, Walther, and Glock. And honestly, I'm not too surprised about that. I would have figured that it kind of makes sense. The CZ, you guys know this, been shooting the CZ ever since I got it. That's my carry optics gun. the Sig is just a fantastic weapon in this class of guns. It's just, they did a lot right in that. The Walther is right along the same lines. It's a purpose-built tank to be able to run into this class competitively. And then the Glock is kind of like the CZ, where it's just a one of the, you know, topper tiered guns from one of the manufacturers that they tossed a dot on and threw into the Carry Optics class. So, you know, the CZ, I shoot it, and then you got the purpose-built guns. As far as for beginners, I'm kind of, as I said just a couple of minutes ago with Builder, if you are planning on getting in and just kind of taking this thing as a hobby and really just kind of rolling with it, I think CZ is the best. It is definitely the best entry value. You're going to spend the least on it. You're going to be under $1,000 on a CZ with the Holosun on top of it. If you are wanting to get into this and actually be competitive and, you know, really try to push yourself, then I think the Sig is the best option. It just, the ergonomics of it feel a little bit better. The trigger is subpar. I would actually put the Sig's trigger as the worst on the table. Or, yeah, the worst. I would even put the Glocks as better than the Sigs. The Sigs is squishy. We had at least 2 of us short-stroked the trigger. 3 of us? Okay. 3 of us short-stroked the trigger on the Sig, and we didn't do that with any of the rest of them. So I would, which is saying a lot since that's second to the highest price of gun. I'm not sure what it costs to increase or to upgrade that trigger, but if you're looking at actually being competitive and taking it 100% seriously, that would be probably the best money for you. As Aaron said, the Walther does have the best trigger on the table. There's just something about it from the factory. It's not overly heavy. It's a nice wall. The trigger shape it's a curved trigger, but it's not, it doesn't have like the rounding on the side that makes your finger feel all funny. So it's like a flat-faced curved trigger. I don't know. But, so that's where I would sit. I would say if you're looking at entry level, just getting in and having fun, the CZ is going to be your best bang for the buck. And if you're actually wanting to be competitive and take it seriously, head over to the Sig. Okay, so we just realized that we did all this shooting and we didn't really go over the optics a whole lot. And the optics do make a big impact on this. Like the dot, not every dot is made the same. So really quick, we're just going to go over the optics, give a quick little rundown of what each one of us thought of each one of the optics. Keep it short because I want to go home. It's like 11:30 at night, guys. First up, let's go with the Shield RMS. All right, Aaron, what do you think?
So the Shield RMS was probably my least favorite of the 4 here. The big thing that's in its favor is that it's very low. So if you're not accustomed to shooting a dot, it indexes a little more naturally for you, which definitely is a benefit for me. And you can co-witness it with the stock Glock sights because the mount and everything is so low. The downsides were it wasn't as bright as I wanted it, and you can't adjust it. There's no manual adjustment. So it only adjusts itself based on ambient light, which I was not a fan of. And the dot was, or I'm sorry, not the dot, but the window was smaller. So it was the only one out of the group where I would have the dot actually jump out of the window during firing. Now some of that is that the gun was lighter. You know, it was on the lighter gun as well. But I think of that as more like a carry optic as opposed to a competition optic. And so it has some limitations in that regard.
Yep. Builder?
The only real thing that I would say I really liked about it, and it was just because I'm such a so green behind or wet behind the ears with the red dot, is the fact that I could co-witness a sight, co-witness the iron sights, or just look through the iron sights. But other than that, compared to the other optics, especially in the price point that it's at, I don't really see it being viable for competition in any way.
Yeah, and as far as the RMS goes for me, the RMS is almost identical to the US Optics MCRS. You guys can see a review that I've done on that. My complaints are exactly the same. The dot is dim, it is not manually adjustable, the window is small, which all leads to, as Aaron said, an optic more based... Why am I holding this up to my own mouth? I have one on me. Which leads to an optic that is more set for carry. And honestly, if you can do something bigger than an RMS for carry, I would suggest getting something bigger. But if that's what you're limited to, go for it. But as Builder said, the price point, you're looking at $400 for an RMS, and that's real dot money. essentially. Okay, next up we've got the Holosun 507C. Aaron, what do you think?
This is my first time shooting with the Holosun, and the best thing I can say about it is that I didn't notice that there was anything that limited me more than, you know, a normal dot. It's a decent sized window. The dot was bright enough. It worked. It was not the biggest out of the group. It wasn't the smallest out of the group. It was kind of the middle ground in every regard except price. It was the least expensive out of them. So I think value-wise, it's probably a very good choice for somebody. It might be a little big for a carry gun depending on how you want to carry and where you want to carry, but as far as competition dot, especially somebody starting out looking for something within a budget, I think it's perfect. So,
Bill?
I think it is hands down the best optic for the money. When I get my first optic, I got a Vortex Venom, and it was the same price as that Holosun is sitting there right now, and they're not even comparable. I mean, the window size is huge. It's extremely durable. You can't really see it right now, but that one took a spill off of a bench, worked the bench, onto a concrete floor. Has a nice little ding in the bezel, and I mean it still works great. Never lost zero, I don't believe.
Nope.
And only cosmetic damage. I mean it's just a great dot.
It's about a 3.5, 4 foot fall too. I'm clumsy. So you guys will get a little preview of this because I do plan on doing a review of the 507 relatively soon. The 507 is, to me, a very interesting dot. It very much takes the space that the RMR sits in and is kind of heralded as the prime king for half the price, a little more than half the price. As far as the dots that we've got here, as Aaron said, it's not the biggest, it's not the smallest. To me, it is more of a carry dot than a competition dot. When for competition dots, you've got the SRO and the Delta Point Pro and the Sig. What is it? The Romeo 1?
the Romeo 1 Pro.
Okay, the Romeo 1 Pro. But as far as entry level, somebody getting into it, I think the Holosun is the best bang for the buck, especially, and I would not have any issues with somebody buying the Holosun and putting it on the Sig or the Walther. I don't think you're not going to go to a competition and somebody look at you and be like, oh, that cheap ass didn't spend enough money on his optic. The Holosuns are proving to be a tank. They're proving to be effective, and they've got a big enough window that you can actually utilize them effectively in pretty much any situation. All right, next up we have the SRO. Aaron?
So the SRO is kind of the flagship competition optic right now, right? It's the most expensive one we've got on the table here. It's relatively new, and Trijicon's a huge name, obviously, in optics. I love it for competition optic. There's a couple things that I really like about it. One is the big window size. Two is the fact that it's almost, if you look at it, there's like a tube as opposed to just a normal window outline. And so it points very naturally for me. It kind of helps your eye align it. It would be enormous for a carry optic, right?
Yes.
But it works quite well as competition optic, but it's very expensive. And that's basically
570?
Yeah, and that's the limitation for there, is that it is more expensive, but I think it's a fantastic dot for competition shooting.
Yep.
So
Builder?
It is absolutely enormous. I mean, it just gives you the most opportunity to see what you need to see. The cost is, I mean, it's already been mentioned, but the cost is way up there. But for a competition optic, I don't know that you could really get a better optic. There are better optics I would consider for carry, but for carry optics class, hands down, the SRO should be, and I believe is king.
So the SRO, I think part of my issue with the SRO in this situation is I have a problem aiming the Walther. Because of the weird ergonomics of it, I came up low every time. Now, once I adjusted that, the window is gigantic, and it's a massive window. You can't lose the dot when you're shooting that with that, especially the combination of the low recoil of the Walther combined with the gigantic window. It's simple to shoot. As they said, the SRO is kind of the premier of competition optics. It's pricey, but just like the Sig and the Walther, it's one of those ones where if you're going to take the game seriously and really want to be fully as competitive as you can, then the SRO is king. All right, and last up, we've got the Leupold Delta Point Pro. Aaron, what's your thoughts on the Delta Point?
Well, the Leupold is actually the first optic I used in Carry Optics, so I'm very familiar with it. And then I upgraded to the SRO on my current gun, right? And the Leupold has some advantages. It has a large window, right? It's one of the reasons why it was such a popular optic. It's got the adjustable dot. It's got all the things that I like about the others. It's just not quite as high, if you will, like the window's not as large as it is for the SRO, which I think under recoil and shooting quickly, it's just a little bit more limited. It's also $170 cheaper. So I think the Leupold makes a great option as a competition optic, especially if you're not looking to spend as much money as you would on the SRO. Right. I still like it a lot. I would have no hesitation whatsoever using one. It's a great optic. Its biggest limitation, I think, is battery life. It does not have the battery life that the SRO does. So make sure you take an extra one with you. But other than that, I mean, it makes a great competition optic. So,
Miller?
Short of an SRO, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a better Carry Optics optic. And as far as that goes, it's large enough. The window's large enough that you can comfortably shoot competitively with it. But the optic itself is still small enough that you can get by with carrying it. Depending on your situation, obviously. I wouldn't have any problem competing with it or carrying it. As far as the battery life, it has a lesser battery life, but a big plus for me, and part of the reason I'm a big fan of the Delta Point Pro is the battery's on top. You can change it without taking your optic off. And for some optics, that's not a big deal. The Holosun runs for like somewhere around 300 to 400 years.
6 to 10.
Yeah.
Close enough.
But for a direct comparison, the Leupold versus the Shield RMS, they're just not even comparable. The Leupold is a far better optic, in my opinion.
one interesting side note about the RMS is that you can actually change the battery without taking it off the gun.
Can you?
Yeah, there's a little tray. It's got a side tray in it.
Mm-hmm.
The compact version you cannot. The polymer version you cannot, but the RMS metal version you can. So.
One more spot where US Optics dropped the ball on that design. Good job, guys. Okay, so my thoughts on the Delta Point Pro. This is my first time shooting a Delta Point Pro, and I was actually pleasantly surprised by it. I guess I'm not sure what I was expecting, but it's a nice in-between between the kind of the size of the Holosun and the size of the SRO. It can do both. To be honest, the battery life would make me think twice about carrying it. Just
that would be a concern.
Right. But as far as competition goes, especially with that the top tray battery, I mean, there's no downside really to running it. Just make sure you bring a fresh battery. If it goes out in the middle of one of your runs, then that one runs trash, but you just swap the battery and you're good to go the next time around. And I think it pairs really well with the Sig. I would not, if you are really trying to be serious and getting into it, but also trying to keep a mind on budget at least a little bit, and you decided that you wanted to get the Sig, the X5 Legion, but you were kind of pushing it a little bit, I would have no problem telling you to get a Delta Point Pro and to run that, because you're going to be competitive with the Delta Point Pro. You're not, the odds of you at that level being kind of pulled down by the Delta Point Pro versus the SRO is slim to none.
Another plus that I forgot to mention earlier about the Delta Point Pro is in a carry situation, if you're worried about battery life or whatever like that, they do sell an optional rear sight that mounts on the back of the optic as well. So if you just run a tall front sight, you can have that rear sight on the back and then be good to go.
Any last thoughts about anything?
We rank the handguns, so I say if we rank the optics for competition, I would go SRO, Delta Point, Holosun, RMS.
I think I'd agree with that.
For carry, I would probably go Holosun, Delta Point, RMS, SRO.
Yep.
So
yeah, I agree with that too.
I would probably switch the SRO and RMS on that. I would rather have more bulk and have a more reliable optic, in my opinion.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So that's it, guys. That is our Carry Optics Shootout. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a little bit of use out of it. If anybody is looking for any more information, go ahead and write in the comments down below. As always, I keep an eye on those, and I'll get to you as quick as I can. That can be options on what ifs, on how much monies, other options. If you've got any other suggestions for these kind of shoot-off things that we're doing, so far we've done the subgun shootout, we've done carry optics. If you guys want to see other stuff, let us know, and we'll try to fit that in and get together with Aaron here. one more thanks and big shout out to Applied Ballistics. Guys, this place is a huge supporter of the Second Amendment and shooting sports in the Lafayette area. If you are in the Lafayette area or kind of the north central section of Indiana, stop in here. They've got an awesome range. The people are fantastic. They've got one of the best variety cases of rental guns that I've seen. And you can actually rent versions of every single one of these guns that we have shot today here at Applied Ballistics. So, thank you, Applied Ballistics. So if you like what we do here on the channel, we also would appreciate it if you hopped over to our Patreon page. And if you wanted to help us out a little bit, we do have a couple of different tiers over there where you get some extra little content. You get some early previews to all of our videos. And if you spend enough, you even get a shirt. You can also stop in at Applied Ballistics and get one of theirs. Remember, guys, if you found the video useful, go ahead and like and subscribe down below. Appreciate every one of you. Until next time, do your research, get informed, and get to work.